Hey, what's going on, guys? It's No Shoes, and we're back with another one. And today we're going to be taking a look at parametric EQs and how you can get the most out of them using the sweep technique. So here we are in Ableton Live 12. This is my native DAW. This is my favorite DAW to work in, especially for producing. And the techniques we're going to go over today, while I am showing you them in Ableton, will work using any EQ no matter what DAW you're using, but they will work best with a parametric EQ that allows you to control all the individual parameters of the EQ, that being gain, bandwidth, and frequency. Something to keep in mind when you are using the sweep technique to fine tune your EQs on your track, you're going to want a limiter on your main channel. This is not to increase the volume. This is not to add any flavor to the sound. The main goal for me with this is to protect my ears and the circuitry of my speakers, computer, headphones, whatever it is that the sound is playing through, because when we do this sweep technique on the EQs, we are going to be boosting frequencies essentially to discover what is within the sound. So if you boost those frequencies and you don't have a limiter in place and your levels are running too hot, it's very possible that you're going to blow things out. So just keep that in mind. Be mindful of the levels. If you don't have a limiter that you can put on the master channel, just be very careful while doing this. But this is going to help us maintain safety while pushing these EQs to the limits to truly discover what is within each of these sounds. Before we dive into using these EQs, first let's start off by just listening to the track for a little bit so we can get an idea of what it sounds like with nothing done to it. I've turned off the EQs and the compressors that I have on this track. Currently, the only mixing that has been done to the track is on the actual levels on the faders, which, when you're mixing, a good goal for your peak amplitude coming through the master fader is going to be about -6 to -3 dB. That way you're going to leave some headroom for mastering later down the road. But without any further ado, let's listen to a little bit of this beat, and then we'll come back and see what we can do to make it sound even better. All right. And with those trumpets playing, we've gone through the three main portions of this beat. This instrumental is based off of Aesop Rock's King of World Peace, or KOWP, from the Freedom Finger soundtrack. And I found that track super inspiring. The amount of space on it, the drums, the bass, the way they line up, the hi-hat with the delay, and then you have a little bit of brightness coming through about every 8 bars with those trumpets. And for a quick break from our sponsor, it is you guys and your donations to the Buy Me a Coffee, your support of my music, everything y'all do to support me, the channel, and our community helps to make these videos possible. Check out the link tree in the description. We got a Buy Me a Coffee down there. You can get access to Discord, extra content. You can download my music directly from there. A lot of announcements go up there first. There's a lot of fun stuff, a lot of fantastic people. I truly appreciate all of that, all of y'all that support over there already. And if you're interested in checking it out, that link tree is always down in the description. Thank you. So right now I have the drum machine soloed. Something to keep in mind when mixing is you don't want to solo for too long, because your mixing is going to depend on every other layer, as you might assume. So we're going to solo for a little bit just for the sake of clarity, because I know what's here, but you guys don't know exactly where these hits are happening. So we're going to start out, we'll build up the piece slowly, and we'll see how it goes from here. But we're going to start out with mixing this kick and getting the most out of that. So let's let it play, and I'll start to adjust the EQ, and we'll pause periodically and talk about what's happening here. So now I added a high pass filter based on the first dot here in the EQ. And now we're going to start sweeping. You'll notice I'm pulling it all the way up to the top. And now we can hear that sound. So it's starting to distort a little bit. We want to bring in that bass, leave that high. Nice punchy sound right there. Now let's turn it off. Yep, we're already building some body in that kick. We're emphasizing the fundamental, the bass note of that kick. Bass as in B-A-S-E, although it is the bass drum. Now, we're going to bring this 2 back and we're going to see what else is in here. So now it's getting kind of nasty up here and where we're getting to like the low mids. And we're starting to get to a little bit of a boxy place. Like right here. So maybe we want to use a notch to cut that out. So we're going to switch over to the notch option. And we can start to pull out a little bit of that mud. Just a tiny bit. Nothing crazy. And it really just adds a little bit more clarity to that kick. We might want to add a little bit up in the higher end, give it some clarity as well. Maybe a little too high there. We can really feel the pedal impact in that area. We can widen this a little bit, and then we can use the frequency bandwidth to adjust the width of that notch. Beautiful. All right, so that is the kick. Now let's unsolo the drums. You can hear the drums coming through just a little bit more. And then we reach the little SFX piece at the end there. So now that we got the kick coming in, let's move on to the snare. And we actually don't want to solo that snare because we won't hear too much without it. So let's solo the kit again. And we're going to come back to snare 1. And we're going to drop in another EQ8 or a parametric EQ in whatever DAW that you're using. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to create a high pass. That high pass filter allows all the high frequencies to pass, as you can tell by the way it is drooping down in the lower frequencies. All right, we got a little too high there. Right about in here. That's where the fundamental of our snare drum is hitting. Nice, snappy sound. There might be a little mud in here to take out. I think right in here, that impact is a little snappy for me. So what we can do again, we're gonna make a notch. We're gonna pull that up. Just get rid of a little bit. Yep, it's nice and snappy, but it maintains a little bit more of that clarity. And I think we might be able to reduce that somewhat. And let's turn that off. Turn it on. Much clearer, a lot more air. And snare drums sometimes wants, in the upper end, a little bit of air. Let's see. Turn it back on. Just a little bit of extra flavor. Nothing too crazy going on. And then let's unsolo. Beautiful. Nice, snappy. It comes through pretty clear on the snare and the kick now. And we're back to the SFX at the end. Beautiful. So now we're going to come to the hi-hat. And that is the wrong hi-hat, and I pressed the wrong solo button. So now let's solo again. Just the drums. We've got our single hi-hat, and we're going to bring in another EQ. We're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to expand that menu down in the bottom. We're going to find the lowest frequency at which we need in the hi-hat. So that's why we're doing this sweep. You can hear that tone changing. And I can unsolo this hi-hat. And solo the kit. Cool. We don't want to work on it in a vacuum. So it's starting to distort. We're losing a little bit of that bottom end. We're going to leave a little bit of that bottom end in there. Now let's see where we can go with the next parameter. So this hi-hat, it's pretty set already. It's pretty clean. I think what I might do is come down just a little bit. And we're going to adjust the Q on this one. So I'm going to thin that out a little bit. Just take out a tiny bit from that mid area of the hi-hat. We're getting to the higher end there, but not too high just yet. Right now, we're at the top of like the honky mids at just under 1,000 hertz. And then, or 1,000 kHz. And then I felt like it wanted some air up at the top. Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit. We might even come in with a high pass up here and say, where can we end it? Now that's pretty controlled. I think it's a little distorted though. Now let's mute, or let's turn off this EQ. A lot flatter, a lot more dead. There's not a lot of flavor to that hi-hat. And then, once it comes back, the EQ will be on. A lot more life to it. And let's bring in the rest of the instrumental. So, things are working well right now. The thing that I'm noticing most at this point is the bass line. It's really heavy. It kind of masks the kicks, and masking is when one sound covers another. It puts a mask over it. So we've mixed all the important parts of our drums. This is a simple pattern: hi-hat, kick, snare. Really only uses 3 of the sounds out of like the 16 or the 12, however many there are in this particular drum pad. But now we need to figure out what's going on with the bass. I already have the bass slightly EQ'd, but for the purposes of today, we are going to remove that EQ from the bass line, and we're going to do it again. So as you can see, there is an EQ and a compressor in this chain. We will address compression soon, maybe in the next video on the channel. But as you can tell right now, these 2 parts of our signal chain are off. They're not affecting anything. So now we can start to adjust again. So what do? We're going to make the EQ big so you guys can see it. And then we're going to add that high pass filter in again. That's pretty much how I start off every time. There's a lot of bottom end and a lot of sounds, and it pretty much does nothing. There's not a lot of useful sound that happens below like 35 hertz or even a little bit higher. Our ears just, it's just too low. It doesn't really register. But let's start up this bass line, and we're going to mix all of this together now. The drums, because of the masking issue, is why I soloed them. Now we're going to figure out how to make the bass fit into those kicks and snares. And this is going to be a good way to do it. So let's start playing now. So that's pretty low, pretty bassy. And I think I want to emphasize the higher portion of that bass fundamental. So I'm going to ignore that really punchy low part of it. And in fact, I'm going to increase this cutoff. And then I'm going to pull it down just a little bit. So now what's happening is, you notice, let me do that one more time. So see the changing in the steepness of that curve. Before it was much softer. Now we're doing a much dramatic cut to those low frequencies. And the reason why I'm doing that is there's a lot of thump in the bass that's going to interfere with those kicks being able to come through. Are there other ways we could do this? Could we sidechain it? Could we do a bunch of other things? Sure. But for the purposes of today, the EQ is what we're going to use to make this work. Can already hear the kick coming through. And then we're going to give a little bit of boost in the mids. And then I'm actually going to enable a fifth spot on the EQ. And that's kind of muddy. Yeah, right in here's a little muddy between these. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to make that a notch again. There we go. Now it's coming. We're going to adjust the Q. Thin that out. Bring this down a little bit. Now you can hear that kick. Bring this down a little further. There we go. Let's turn it off. Turn it off again. Turn it back on. Just helps the kick come through a little bit, cleans up that bottom end. I might make this less extreme now. There we go. Let a little bit of that bottom end back in. Really try to refine it. And now we can hear both. So, that's great. And this bass line already sounds pretty decent. But maybe there's something hidden up in the higher frequencies that we just don't know about yet. There's a lot of things in there. Clarity and articulation. There's sheen that happens at the very top of the frequency range. There's other things like honky sounds that can happen in the upper mids. So let's play this a little bit more and see if anything happens that's fun or maybe nasty when we get up a little bit higher. Nasty. Not much happening up here. Ooh, that might be fun. Yeah, maybe right in there. Maybe we bring down 2 a little bit, keep 1 up, and then what if we expand the Q of 3? Yep, that's nice. I think EQ for 3, that can be a little bit tighter. There we go. Let's try that one more time. Yeah, much clearer, much crispier. And that also brings me to another point. There's a quote from Brian Eno where he discusses the creation of music, producing, mixing, whatever part of it is you're in. I think it can apply where he says advance to a point of extreme and then retreat to a more useful position, or advance to a point of ridiculousness and then retreat to a more useful position. A lot of these effects, the easiest ways to learn what they do and how they affect sound is to just crank them all the way. And like I said, one of the things that's important when doing that is making sure that you're protecting your ears first and the circuitry second, which is why we started this by putting a ceiling on our master fader. So that way we're not going to blow our ears out no matter how much of a boost we add to any of these instruments. Now, we got one more instrument we're going to mix. I'm going to leave the SFX at the end alone. It's a misnomer, it's a one off, it's a weird sound. But the trumpets will be valuable to take a look at. So, again, what do? We add our EQ8 in. And for our cases here, we're actually going to come into, I believe, what is called arrangement view in Ableton. And we're actually going to limit our loop to a section that includes the trumpet. And you're also going to find out an audio engineer's worst nightmare here, or just a regular daily part of life for us, which is listening to the same 5 seconds over and over and over and over again. All right, and now we're back on the trumpet. So let's hit that again. So now we're going to add in. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add in our high pass, right? We want to make sure that's set. Now we're going to start doing some sweeps. And we're going to jump back in there. All right. So as you can see, the trumpet really doesn't go low at all. Right now, we're somewhere between 100 hertz and 1,000 kilohertz. I'm not exactly sure what range I would put us in. We're probably somewhere in like the boxy to just regular mids. And that's about where the fundamental of the trumpet lives. You can see it visualized on the EQ. And for some reason, it's not playing from within the loop for me today. So it's kind of nasty right there. Oh, wrong one. Get rid of that little bit of honkiness. Maybe give it some air. And we'll add in a... Add in a little cut at the top. And when you add a cut at the top, that is what's called a low pass filter. A low pass filter allows lower frequencies to pass through. A high pass filter allows higher frequencies to pass through. So a low pass filter actually goes in the high frequencies, and a high pass filter actually goes in the low frequencies. It's weird, but you get used to it. And when you use both of them, almost like I am now, you have what some might call a band pass filter, where you have a low pass and a high pass together. Now you have a band pass with a little bit of extra. I'm being subtractive here. These little notches I'm using are called subtractive EQing, where you take away pieces of the sound to allow other pieces of the sound to breathe. That reflects on ideas of stuff like headroom that we talked about, where you want to make sure your mix isn't peaking too hot, or you won't have any room for the mastering engineer to actually make your music sound better once it's done. But we've gotten through all main layers of this track at this point. We've got the drums, we've got the trumpet, we've got the bass. Let's start it all out from the top and see how it sounds together. And we'll just listen for a little bit, and then I'll come back, turn the EQs off for a second, and we'll listen again. So let's check this out. Yeah, the difference is immediate. Much cleaner, much tighter. Boom. All right. And then, just for the sake of showing it all the way through, so now let's take off this upper ceiling and just make sure. And what we'll do, actually, just for the fun of it, is we'll turn back on the compression that I initially had set on this track. Your compressor can come before or after your EQ, really up to you. It's none of my business what you do. There are people who say different ways are better for different reasons. I couldn't tell you. I think it depends on what you need to do. But let's keep this going. Yeah, throw some compression on there. It's big. A little too hot now that I got the boost. Gonna pull it back just a little bit. Peaking a little low. Wait for trumpets. Nope, there we go. That's what we needed. Cool. All right, and there we go. We're back to peaking at about -6, up to -4 in some places. And we just went through all the EQs on the instrumental portions of this track. Obviously, things are going to change, but this technique can apply to pretty much any instrument, any vocal, any sound that you want to put through it. Is you're essentially going to discover what the different pieces of the sound are by sweeping on the EQ across the frequencies until essentially you hear distortion. When you hear distortion, either say, I like that distortion and I want to leave a little bit of that in the sound, or say, I don't like that distortion and I don't want any of that in the sound. And truly, either answer is right, because you're mixing music. And if there's anything that I can give you to give guidance on how to actually make it sound better, Just listen to more music. Listen to music all the time. Use reference pieces while you're mixing. Whatever it is that helps you, create a catalog in your head of what music sounds like. And then just through that process, you will create better music because your ear is properly trained. Well, I think that got a little long winded there, but I hope you guys got something out of that. The big thing to take away is to listen to music, try to pay as close of attention as you can, and use those EQ sweeps to discover what's within the sound, what parts you want to keep, what parts you want to get rid of, and then use that information to EQ the sound as best as you can, whether you want it to sound natural, whether you want it to sound distorted, crispy, clean, whatever it is. But once again, I'm No Shoes. This was on a beat I made modeled after King of World Peace. I have music out on streaming, my EP Dabda, both the original and the instrumental cut, a couple ciphers. Link trees are in description if you want to support over there. And I truly appreciate it if y'all take the time to check that out. But much love to everybody in the No Shoes gang, and I will see you all next time.